All right. So you've sent us a whole bunch of stuff about this national monument to the forefathers
Yeah.
in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And I have to admit, when I first saw pictures of it, it was kind of like, another monument, really.
Right.
But then I started digging into all this material you sent us, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
It's
It's a lot more than just another statue in the park.
exactly. It's this massive 81-foot tall granite structure,
Wow.
the largest one of its kind in the U.S.
Yeah, and the fact that it's just nestled in this little residential neighborhood is pretty wild.
Totally. Like you wouldn't expect it to be there at all.
Right.
And it was finished in 1889 and dedicated to the Pilgrims.
Mhm.
And all the symbolism in it's meant to reflect their values.
Yeah, it's almost like they tried to create a visual blueprint
Mm-hmm.
for creating a successful society.
Right, exactly. So let's break down the design a little bit.
Okay.
We have this huge central figure, Faith,
Mhm.
who's 36 feet tall.
36 feet tall.
And she's pointing up at the sky.
Oh, wow.
She's holding a Bible, and she's got a star on her forehead. What do you think they were going for with all that symbolism?
Well, I think it's clear they're trying to show how important religion was to the Pilgrims.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible, the gesture towards heaven, the star.
Right.
It all points to their belief in God and how that was really the foundation of everything for them.
Yeah, and it's not just Faith standing there by herself.
You know, you've got these four other figures too.
Mm-hmm.
Morality, law, education, and liberty.
Right, and they're all seated, and each one is surrounded by
All these little details.
all this, yeah.
Yeah, tons of extra figures and symbols that kind of add even more meaning to the whole thing.
Right, like with morality, you've got the Ten Commandments and the Scroll of Revelation,
Mhm.
like showing both the Old and New Testament values there.
Exactly. It's like they wanted to make sure they covered all the bases.
Right, and then you have law, who's got justice and mercy on either side of him,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're showing that a just legal system
Mm.
needs to have both authority but also compassion.
Exactly. And then, of course, you've got education
Mm.
with the mother figure teaching her child,
Yeah.
and liberty as a strong man breaking free from chains.
That's some powerful imagery.
It is. And then on top of all that, you've got these panels depicting all the major scenes from Pilgrim history.
Yeah, you've got the landing at Plymouth Rock,
The signing of the Mayflower Compact,
the treaty with the Native Americans.
the first Thanksgiving, like the whole story is laid out right there for you.
It's really amazing how they managed to capture so much in one monument.
Yeah, it's almost like a visual textbook.
Totally.
Okay, so now some of the sources we got actually argue that this monument is more than just a work of art.
Yeah.
They say it's like a literal formula for a successful nation.
Like a guidebook.
Yeah, a testament to these values that they thought were essential for a thriving society.
Right.
So let's break those down a little bit more. We've got faith, which obviously represents trust in God.
And reliance on the Bible for guidance.
Right. And then you've got morality,
Mm-hmm.
which they see as not just following the rules.
Oh, no, it's much deeper than that.
Right.
It's about actually internalizing God's laws
Right.
and striving to be a good person from the inside out.
Yeah, like it's not just about outward appearances,
Look at
it's
me.
about a genuine transformation of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have law,
Yeah.
which, as we talked about before, emphasizes justice and mercy.
And finding that right balance between fairness and authority.
Right. And of course, education.
Mm-hmm.
Super important for them.
Yeah, they saw that as the key to passing down their values and knowledge
To future generations.
to keep the society strong.
Right. And then finally, you have liberty, which is all about freedom from oppression.
And the courage to stand up and defend those values no matter what.
So given all of that, do you think these values are still reflected in American society today?
You know, that's a really interesting question, especially when you consider all the different opinions we saw in these sources.
Right.
Some people see this monument as a call to get back to those traditional values,
Mm-hmm.
while others focus more on its historical significance
Right.
and understand the complexities of the Pilgrim story.
Yeah. Because it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Definitely not.
Ah.
There's a lot more to unpack there.
Yeah. And before we get into like the relevance of all this today, I think it's important to touch on the historical context a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, we need to remember who the Pilgrims were,
They were seeking religious freedom,
establishing a new colony,
facing incredible hardship.
and ultimately forging alliances with Native Americans.
It's a complex story for sure.
It is. And it's also important to remember that this monument itself was built in the late 1800s.
Yeah, a very different time.
right? Like America was changing rapidly then.
Yeah, you had the Industrial Revolution in full swing.
Right.
Huge social and economic shifts happening.
Totally.
Yeah.
So do you think that had anything to do with why they decided to build this monument?
Maybe it was a reaction to all that change?
Yeah, like a longing for simpler times.
Possibly.
Like they felt these values were being challenged or even forgotten.
And they needed something solid
Yeah.
to remind people of what they believed was important.
So this monument was almost a way to solidify those ideals.
Yeah, like a way to say, hey, these are the things that made America great,
Right.
and we shouldn't lose sight of them.
Okay, so that brings us back to this question of relevance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do these values that they carved in stone over a century ago,
Right.
how do they connect to the world we live in today?
Yeah, because a lot has changed.
A lot has changed. The world the Pilgrims knew,
Right.
or even the world the people who built this monument knew,
Mm-hmm.
is vastly different from our world.
But those core values,
Yeah.
faith, morality, education, law, liberty,
Mm-hmm.
those are still things we grapple with today.
Yeah, people are still debating and discussing them all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in a way,
Mm-hmm.
this monument still speaks to us, even after all these years.
Yeah, and it's crazy how it sparks such different reactions.
Oh, yeah.
Like, some people see it as this overtly Christian symbol,
Mm-hmm.
which they think is kind of at odds with the whole separation of church and state idea,
Yeah, that's a valid point.
especially because you've got faith holding a Bible morality with the Ten Commandments.
The prophet, the evangelist.
Yeah, it's definitely not shying away from its religious roots.
And some of the sources we read even argue that that's the point,
Mm-hmm.
that the monument reflects this vision of America
Mm-hmm.
that's founded on Christian principles.
Right, and they say that that vision is being eroded today.
It's definitely a topic that gets people fired up.
For sure.
Yeah.
But it's important to understand where they're coming from,
Absolutely.
even if you don't necessarily agree with them.
This monument has become a lightning rod for all these discussions about the role of religion in public life,
Yeah.
how we balance individual freedoms with shared values.
It's a really complex issue,
Definitely.
and I think it's fascinating how this one monument,
Mm-hmm.
tucked away in this quiet neighborhood,
Right.
has become this symbol for all these bigger debates.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what the creators would think.
Right.
If they could see all the conversations it's sparking today.
It's hard to say,
Yeah.
but I think it speaks to the power of symbols and stories, how they can connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah. And how even something created over a century ago can still be so relevant
Mm-hmm.
to the things we're struggling with today.
It's like this monument is a bridge between the past and the present,
Yeah,
and it's up to us to figure out what that means for the future.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I have to admit, when I first saw the pictures of this thing, I was kind of like, okay, another monument. But the more I dug into it, the more fascinated I got.
Yeah. There's so much more to it than meets the eye.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you know what really blew my mind?
What's that?
Was learning about how much work went into building this thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're talking 81 feet of solid granite,
all those intricate carving.
all hand-carved.
Yeah. It's insane.
It must have been a crazy undertaking.
It took them over 30 years to finish it.
30 years.
And get this, it was all funded by private donations.
Wow. So people were really passionate about making this happen.
They were clearly dedicated to honoring the Pilgrims and their legacy.
Yeah, and I think it makes you wonder what they were hoping to achieve with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was their goal?
Well, some of the sources we read suggest that they saw it as a way to inspire future generations, like a reminder of the values and principles
Right.
that they believed made America special.
Yeah, almost like a tangible representation of those ideals.
Exactly. Something that would stand the test of time.
And you know what? It's still standing today, over 130 years later.
It's a testament to their vision for sure.
Yeah, and to their craftsmanship.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how something built so long ago can still have such a powerful presence.
And it makes you think about all the other stories and symbols that are out there, just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, like how many other hidden monuments are there?
Right.
Quietly whispering stories and values from the past.
Yeah. That's a really cool thought.
So I guess the next time we see a monument,
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't just walk by.
No, we should stop and take a closer look.
Yeah, ask ourselves, what story is it trying to tell?
What does it represent?
How does it connect to the bigger picture of history?
And most importantly, what does it mean to us?
Yeah. You never know what you might discover.
It's all about keeping an open mind and a sense of curiosity.
Exactly.
Because history is full of surprises.
It really is.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here today.
Yeah, this deep dive has been pretty eye-opening.
It has, and I hope it's given our listeners a new appreciation for this monument.
And maybe even inspired them to go check it out in person.
Yeah, or at least do some more research on their own.
Because there's always more to learn.
Always. And who knows, maybe they'll even stumble upon some hidden monuments of their own.
Now, that would be really cool.
It would. All right, well, that's it for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep exploring.
And keep questioning.
Because history is all around us, just waiting to be discovered.
See you next time.
Bye. Bye.
It's really interesting how one monument can have so many different interpretations.
Yeah, it's like it's reflecting back at us what we already believe.
And, speaking of different perspectives,
Yeah.
some of these sources pointed out how the monument is positioned.
Okay.
It's facing west towards the setting sun. But the figure of faith is looking east towards the sunrise.
Ah, that's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, like they're contrasting the old world with the new.
Exactly. Like visually representing that journey.
Right.
Of leaving everything behind and embracing something completely unknown.
And maybe having faith face east shows how they believed their religion would guide their future. Yeah, like a beacon of hope.
Exactly.
Another thing that struck me was just how much detail went into this monument.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we talked about the main figures and the panels,
Right.
but even the smaller carvings and inscriptions are so intricate.
It's true. They really went all out.
They did. Like, the pedestal that Faith is standing on is covered in these reliefs depicting scenes from the Bible.
Oh, wow.
And the other four figures each have all these little symbolic objects and inscriptions.
Related to their specific virtues.
Exactly. It's like they wanted to create this complete visual narrative.
Yeah, leave no stone unturned.
Literally. I wonder how long it would take to actually see and appreciate every single detail.
Probably days.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe even weeks if you really wanted to take it all in.
And to think that this whole thing was funded entirely through private donations.
That's right.
Like it wasn't a government project or anything.
Nope, just a bunch of people who felt strongly about honoring the Pilgrims.
And their story clearly resonated with a lot of people.
It did, even decades after the founding of the country.
Speaking of which, I learned that the monument is actually located on a hilltop.
Oh, wow.
Overlooking Plymouth Harbor.
So you can see everything.
It's meant to be this prominent landmark.
Yeah, drawing people's attention.
Inviting them to think about its meaning.
And I bet the view from up there is incredible.
Oh, I'm sure. You can see the harbor where the Pilgrims first landed and the town they built.
It's like a direct visual link between the past and the present.
Yeah, you're literally standing on the same ground.
Wow, that must be powerful.
So we've talked about the monument's design, the historical context.
Yeah.
But I keep coming back to this question of its relevance today.
It's a big one.
It is. Do you think the people who created this thing could have ever imagined all the ways it would be interpreted and debated over a century later?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But it shows how powerful symbols and stories can be.
And how even something that seems pretty straightforward
Right.
can actually have all these layers of meaning and complexity.
Exactly. And it challenges us to really think about the past in a nuanced way.
I'm really curious. What do you think the creators would say?
If they could see the conversations it's sparking today.
Would they be surprised?
Who knows? Maybe they'd agree with some of the interpretations and disagree with others.
Or maybe they'd be excited that their work is still relevant.
Yeah, like it's still making people think and talk.
Exactly. It's fascinating to imagine them seeing their creation through our modern eyes.
Yeah, like they're part of this conversation that's still going on today.
And it shows how history isn't just about the past.
Right, it's about this ongoing dialogue between then, now, and the future.
And monuments like this give us this tangible link
to all those different time periods.
Yeah, they invite us to be part of that dialogue.
To learn from what happened before.
To grapple with the present.
And to imagine what the future could be.
And something else that came up in these sources was how this monument is seen as a symbol of American exceptionalism.
Right.
This idea that America is unique and special.
Which has been a big debate throughout our history.
Oh, yeah. Some people think the monument embodies those ideals.
The values that set America apart.
But others point out all the complexities and contradictions.
Yeah, like America's story isn't always pretty.
Exactly. And it shows how even the concept of American exceptionalism is open to interpretation.
And it makes us ask what it really means to be American.
Right. What are the values we want to define us as a nation?
Yeah.
I also found it interesting how this monument is both grand and kind of hidden away at the same time.
Yeah, you've got this colossal structure,
Right.
but it's tucked away in this quiet neighborhood.
It's not like it's in the middle of Times Square
Right.
or some huge national park.
It's like a hidden gem.
Yeah, I wonder if that makes it more contemplative.
Yeah, maybe.
Like you're not surrounded by crowds and noise.
You can really take your time.
And connect with the monument's message on a personal level.
It's like a pilgrimage.
Yeah, a journey to this place where you can reflect on faith, freedom, and the meaning of America.
That's beautiful.
So it makes you think about the role of monuments in general. Are they just reminders of the past?
Or do they challenge us?
To confront uncomfortable truths.
To think about legacies that are complicated.
Right, because monuments aren't neutral.
Definitely not.
They reflect the values and perspectives of the people who created them.
And they can spark conversations.
Debates.
Make us think critically about how we understand history.
And how that history shapes who we are today.
Yeah.
It's really up to each of us to decide how we interpret and engage with these monuments.
Do we celebrate them?
Yeah.
Learn from them? Criticize them?
Exactly. How do we use them to build a better future?
That's a powerful question.
It is. And I think this deep dive into the National Monument to the Forefathers has really shown us how much there is to consider.
It's not just a statue.
It's a symbol, a story, a conversation starter.
And it's a reminder that history is alive.
It's constantly evolving.
And we all have a role to play in shaping its meaning.
You know, it's amazing how these conversations can just keep expanding.
Yeah.
You start with one monument and suddenly you're thinking about like the nature of history itself.
It really shows how everything's connected. How one little symbol can lead to so many different ideas.
And how history isn't just something that happened a long time ago.
Right.
It's still shaping our world today.
Exactly. It's a living thing.
And these monuments are like physical reminders.
Yeah. Like they're anchoring us to the past.
To that connection between then, now, and the future. You know, when we were talking about those hidden monuments earlier,
Yeah.
it made me wonder if we're missing out on a lot.
By not paying attention to the stuff that's right in front of us.
Yeah, like maybe there are all these stories and symbols
Hidden in plain sight.
that we just don't see.
Because we're so focused on the big, obvious stuff.
Right, like the famous landmarks and the official historical sites.
Exactly. But there's a whole other layer of history out there.
If we just take the time to look for it.
It's like a secret code waiting to be cracked.
So how do we start uncovering those hidden histories?
I think it starts with curiosity and being willing to question everything.
Like, not just accepting the stories we've always been told.
Yeah, we need to look for the gaps, the missing pieces.
The voices that haven't been heard.
Exactly, because history is never simple.
Right, there's always more to the story.
And it's not just about kings and queens and battles.
It's about everyday people.
The communities they built, the challenges they faced.
The dreams they had.
Yeah, history is about all of us.
So the next time you're walking down the street, really look around.
Pay attention to the buildings, the statues, even the street names.
Yeah, ask yourself what stories they might be telling.
Who lived here? Who worked here? Who fought for change here?
You might be surprised by what you find.
Even in the most ordinary places.
Because history is all around us.
We just have to open our eyes and see it.
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
This deep dive into the National Monument to the Forefathers has been incredible.
It really has.
We've learned so much about the monument itself,
About the Pilgrims.
about the people who built it.
And about how it still speaks to us today.
It's been a journey of discovery.
And a reminder that history is a conversation.
That's still going on.
And that we can all be a part of.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
We hope it's inspired you to keep exploring.
To keep questioning.
And to keep uncovering the hidden histories all around you.
Because the more we understand the past,
the better equipped we are to shape the future.
That's right. So until next time, keep digging.
And keep an open mind.
You never know what you might find.
See you next time.
Bye.